This is Dawn Marie, and I'm your host for The Jump. This podcast is all about inspiring change, courage, and confidence, building grit. I'm an executive coach and speaker. I've worked for 20 years as a finance executive in New York City and London. I've also attended Georgetown Law and Boston College, and I'm a New York qualified lawyer. I've studied personal development, performance, including sports psychology, and resilience for 15 years. I'll be giving you the techniques, mindset frameworks, and high-performance strategies to finally do the thing that you're scared to do. That jump, because that, my friends, is where the level up is. This is The Jump, parachute required. And welcome to The Jump. Thank you so much for joining me today. I am going to talk a little bit about travel. Solo remote travel is what I've been doing for 15 years. And let me just define that. That's me putting myself usually in the middle of nowhere, way off piste, or way, way far away from the things of man, and just testing my limits. I would say a little bit like Bear Grylls, but I don't always camp. Actually, I rarely camp, but I do rough it. I mean, when I tell you I'm testing my limits, I'm testing my fucking limits. Like if you don't see another human being for 8 hours and you're in the middle of nature and your phone battery is about to die and you've got like, I don't know, a little bit less than empty in your car, that is testing your limits. It's also incredibly fucking stupid. I don't always push it to that end. Someone said, are you an adrenaline junkie? And I would say to that, honestly, the hesitation, you see the resistance there in me, even like, because this podcast has to be completely honest or vulnerable. Otherwise, it's just not going to work. It's not going to land. I would say, yes, there was a time where I was definitely an adrenaline junkie. There were other times where I would use solo trips in the middle of nowhere from a very spiritual sense, and from very there's always an element of spiritual work that I would do on these trips. I didn't really know it at the time. I was reading a lot about Buddhism. I was reading a lot by Michael Singer, Robin Sharma, Jay Shetty. So I was always spiritually curious. It's definitely after 2008, after I graduated from Georgetown Law School with $250K of student loan debt, to be a better person and get a degree so that the world would think that I was good enough, right? I mean, why do most people go to law school? It's not because you really want to be a lawyer. You want that prestige. And then 2008 happened. I had all these student loans and no job. And that's when I really got into travel. And I had to be alone because I had to deal with me and I had to unfuck my head. Also, I always intuitively knew the most beautiful place in the world to go to. And I can't imagine, like, well, actually, I did. In 2023, I met up with a guy. I'm not going to do that story here, but I met up with a guy in Lake Como, and that was a fucking shit show. If that wasn't God in the universe saying, listen, girl, you got a gift for travel, but it's got to be alone. Well, I don't know. There was a lot of messages that came through on that one. But I've been doing solo remote travel 15 years. So I'd like to talk a little bit about Iceland, because that one was a dangerous one. And I think that solo travel, like how I teach it for my coaching clients, is it's at level 6 or pillar 6 of the six part process that I have. I have a coaching methodology, and it's optional, of course, because it's not for everyone to stick yourself in the middle of nowhere for 2 nights and 3 days. When I do it for myself, I usually need a longer hit. So right? I was addicted to it. I am addicted to it like a drug. So I would go away for like at least a week. Maybe a week would turn into 10 days. 10 days would turn into 2 weeks. My longest trip was in 2009, 2010. That's when I was like 8 or 9 months away. And that was mostly through Asia. And the hardest part of that trip was definitely India and definitely North Vietnam. North Vietnam because of how the animals were treated and what I saw in the markets. I'm a massive animal lover. Actually, I feel most at peace when I'm around a lot of animals than I do around a lot of people. Animals are vibrational beings. They're energetic beings, as are humans, but because of the absence of language, I can connect with animals and be very calm and at peace with myself. Sometimes words screw up your ability to connect with those around you. Actually, I think often they do. Often they do, because we lie to ourselves and then we lie to others. And they're lying to themselves and they're lying to you too. Separate topic. Let's talk about Iceland. So I went to Iceland, and this was during a time where I had a permanent job in finance. This was when I was in London in asset management. And I went when I was really frustrated with myself. I went just before I turned 40. I'm 45 now. And I wouldn't say that I don't think I was suicidal. I was angry with myself. And I was looking for a hit. And a hit of something to make me feel alive. I had a job that I didn't really like. I knew I was capable of so much more. I was scared of leaving the job. I hated myself for going to law school and then becoming a chief compliance officer. And even now I trip on those words. Let me repeat that because it's important. And yes, I treat this podcast like a confessional. I hated myself for going to Georgetown Law School. And then the greatest thing that I could seem to accomplish in my career was a chief compliance officer, which is still a C-level job. And for asset management firms, especially when you're talking 3 to 5 billion, it's a very important job actually, because the regulator will come in and shut your shit down after '08 and all of the Madoff stuff. And God. There was a deep hate that I had of myself for not becoming a general counsel, for not being, not graduating from Georgetown and immediately going to a big law firm, because that's what you're supposed to do. But it just so happened that my GPA from Georgetown was 2.97, and no big law firm would take me in 2008 because they had partners who were leaving. They were laying off people left, right, and center. It was during the economic collapse. And if you get off that train, right? It's a train track, and there is no deviation from the train track. Either you graduate from law school and you start as an associate with a big law firm, and the rest of your career is gravy. And by gravy, I would mean good, although I'm not sure there's too many happy lawyers in their 40s. Separate topic. Not that I haven't been tracking them. Separate topic. But yeah, you're on this train track, and if you're not on like that train track, and you miss the stop, the train keeps on going. Like that's it. You don't get on when you're supposed to get on. As far as big law, that's it. And so I was going through a period where I hated myself a bit, and so Iceland was a lot of my trips are extremely transformative. Iceland was a bit dangerous. And I went to Iceland. I was driving around in a car that was not fit for purpose. Now, mind you, I grew up in the States, so I know how to drive a standard car, like automatic, right? Not manual. Now, I taught myself manual by sheer tenacity or stupidity, or I don't know. But I taught myself manual like little by little over the years while I was in England. And then finally I got my license because I realized that you're not really allowed to do what I was doing, which is rent cars on my American license. Anyway, long story short, I get to Iceland. The car that the thing when you travel in Europe is that cars that are stick shift or, manual, those are much, 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 much cheaper to rent than an automatic car. And by much, I mean like half the price, if not less, maybe 1/3 of the price. And there's many more of them. You have a lot more choice, right? So I went with a car that was manual, right? It was in the winter. It was in Iceland. I didn't read enough about the fucking weather, and candidly, I never do. I'm always testing myself with that. I even go on hikes still to this day by myself, and I don't look at the weather. I read the weather. I promise you there, by like fucking sheer fucking stupid mistakes in the past, now I'm able to read the weather when I'm out hiking. And I know I do look a little bit to kind of see in certain areas. For example, Iceland is one of them. The weather can change so rapidly. It's the wind that comes from nowhere, and it can lift you up. And so I'm much better now than I was back then. This car that wasn't fit for purpose. I think it was 2-wheel drive, not 4-wheel drive. Honestly, I swear to God, I actually think that's true. And I still have the receipt of the car that I rented to this day, so I can look it up if anyone's curious. And I was alone, and I didn't want to do the typical Dawn fashion. I did not want to fucking just do the thing that everyone does, which is go to Iceland, go to the spa, stick some mud on your face, go for a swim. I wanted to push myself. So I decided to drive the entire circumference of Iceland by myself, which is fucking stupid. It was. The other thing about Iceland is that I took some of the best photography I've ever taken there. I'll try and find some of the photographs of ponies. There are all of these wild ponies in Iceland. But the other weird thing, Iceland is a volcano, right? So I went to beaches where you would have these kind of, not glaciers, but these big pieces, boulders, huge boulders, the size of cars, the size of like small buildings, like of ice on black volcanic sand. And it was epic. It was absolutely beautiful. It was hypnotizing. But there was something about the vibration of me and the vibration of Iceland that was not a fit. And I felt it from the beginning. Some places I go to and they absolutely love me. The place, the location. There's something with me in geography. I don't know what it is. I'm eventually probably going to find some fucking spiritual lady who'll tell me what it is. But there's some places that I go to that everything lines up. I never plan my hotels. I plan two nights of a hotel anywhere I go to, and I figure out the rest as I go. This is a way of testing my limits. 1, 2, making myself uncomfortable. 3, figuring out as I go. And that's a certain part of my brain that I've always cultivated. That's how I would do half the stuff I would do in work, in hedge funds, and in finance, and in private equity. I could figure stuff out very quickly because I was putting myself through the paces in my travel, right? So in this Iceland trip, so I'm driving around and it's beautiful, but I'm like, there has to be more there because there's a circle, like certain loop. When you fly into Iceland, there's a certain loop that's almost called like the touristy loop, and you just are supposed to do the loop, and then, you fly out. And for me, that wasn't enough. And I really wish that it was, because I was looking for an edge, a sharpness, not a healing. It was something different. I'm so much more self-aware now. Well, I'm older, right? I'm so much more self-aware now than I was then. And outside of taking this car around the whole island, and also I knew there was a certain point, even in the early days, that I knew the weather could change really rapidly. Like, I got the car stuck on ice. I got the car stuck on snow. There was a point where I drove someplace and like everyone was stopped and pulled over to the side of the road because a storm was coming. And that was like the only option. And I'm fucking like Googling, are there tornadoes in Iceland? Because I don't fucking know. Like, there's tornadoes in Kansas, but like, people had pulled over, and it wasn't like anyone was like gathered in the street. Like, people were fucking locked in their car because whatever was coming was coming. And you could kind of hear it. You could hear the weather coming. And the car, when the wind and this, I don't want to call it weather, when it was a storm, it was an ice storm, a hailstorm, and it came out of fucking nowhere. You realize your mortality and how insignificant you are when you were in an ice storm in Iceland. No shit. And you were just locked in your car being like, definitely this car is moving right now. Like, how strong can winds go? And quite frankly, I don't know. It wasn't a tornado because they don't have those in Iceland. It was an Iceland storm, but that wind is fierce and it can pick things up. And I remember the car moving and me thinking, well, do I get out of the car? Do I stay in the car? I think I stay in the car. I've always kind of struggled with my weight, but I was like, at least there's more weight in the car. And I'm thinking about gravity and I'm thinking about the practicalities of an ice storm. And I'm thinking about, okay, so there's definitely, what are those airbags? There's airbags. So if the car lifts up and flips down, okay, I have that. My phone has very little signal right now. So I have that. There's a couple of cars like down the road who are also pulled over waiting for this shitstorm, literally ice storm in Iceland to pass. And I just kind of got really comfortable with a level of what I would say danger. And I don't really like, it makes me uncomfortable to think how comfortable I was with that then. Because I was angry about my career. I thought I was a failure. And I think a little bit of what was going on in Iceland was I wasn't seeking death. I was dancing with it. I was dancing close, cheek to cheek. A very intimate dance. And it's one of the few trips, Iceland and India, countries that begin with I, although I love Italy. However, I did get into a physical fight in Italy. Iceland, India, those were two trips. And I've been to over 35 different countries all across like Europe and Africa and all over the place and over 30 states as well. But those two trips, it was coming from a different place. It was coming from self-hate. It was coming from looking for an edge. It was coming from, it wasn't coming from joy. I was looking for a way to punish me, I think, for not being a lawyer. I am a New York qualified lawyer, but for not practicing law. I was punishing myself. And I was doing it in a really dangerous way. Like some of the roads that I would drive on, I wouldn't see another soul or even a pony or a plant for like 4 hours. And I could feel it. I could feel like the death or it felt like it didn't feel like you were driving across like another planet. It felt like you were driving across something where nothing lived. And it doesn't live. They have ponies, but there's not wildlife. There's not plants. It's volcanic ash. And I could feel it. I could feel it in my soul. There wasn't a sense of, there was a sense of wonder, but there was a deeper sense of sadness. I felt it. I felt it in the geography of Iceland. And I should have turned around and I didn't. I told myself, Dawn, you are going to drive the circumference of this island. And you're going to go here, there, and you're going to see the northern lights. Let me tell you about the northern lights in Iceland. I had to chase those fuckers. I had to chase the northern lights. And there was a tour that I did. I shit you not. I cannot make this up. There was a tour that I did. And there was like, you have to go really, really late at night when the temperature is really down. And you have to just kind of like drive around looking for the northern lights, right? And this tour in this van, he would drive without the lights on down highways, because that's the best way to look up at the sky. So he would be driving at 80 miles an hour and then turn off the headlights. This is, mind you, at like 12 midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, and then be not looking straight ahead at the fucking road, which God only knows what would pass in front of it because the headlights are off and we're in pitch black middle of bumblefuck nowhere in Iceland. But he would be driving, not looking at the road, and then just head out, like looking at the windshield, through the windshield, trying to find the northern lights. And then he would get on the phone with his like mates who were also in cars driving around without fucking headlights on, sticking their head out the windshield, fucking looking for where and be like, where are they? They're here. They're there. Okay. Do you see a sighting? And he'd be on the phone. He was multitasking, driving like a maniac. I mean, that was also a sign that I should not be in Iceland. Like I go to the south of France. I love a little town in south of France. It's near Saint-Tropez. And, it's close by, and I go there, and like everyone just is so sweet. The hotel owner gives me the best room for a stupid cheap price, like $80 a night. I have a view of the ocean. I'm swimming every night, watching the sunset. I'm massively in flow state. I know exactly what to write. I'm reading great book. I'm having a beautiful glass of French wine. Like the waiters treat me like a queen. Like France loves Donnie. Spain, Andalusia loves Donnie. Not Barcelona, but Andalusia, Spain loved me. France is a soul home. I have a feeling I'm going to live there. Italy also loved me, but Iceland was different. Iceland fought me every step. And I would go down these. There's another thing in Iceland where you drive, and there's. I can't make this up. There are tunnels in Iceland that you drive on. This is not part of the touristy part. There are tunnels in Iceland that you drive on. And they are it is one way, but it is two way. Let me explain it to you. There is enough space in the tunnel, in the highway, and there's only, you're literally driving through fucking volcanoes. And it's just room for your car. And yet it's a 2-lane highway. And this is what I mean. Another car can be coming at you, careening down this fucking tunnel on the same path. And what you have to do is either play chicken or look for the divot or the space in the side of the tunnel where you pull over and you wait for the person to pass. But like, if you don't get to the divot or the place in the road, so as you go through this fucking 2-way, which is really a fucking 1-way, and it's anorexic. This highway is like this small, and there's several of them in a tunnel as you're driving through the volcano. And you have no idea when the next divot, where the next turn-in thing is. So you see headlights coming towards you, and you're like, what are my fucking options? Continue driving forward or back my ass up like very quickly at like 180 miles an hour, because this guy is coming towards you. There is no room for error. There is no fucking guardrail. There is no fucking like sidebar or whatever the hell that thing is called, the thing that you have at the end of the highway. No, there is it's a sphincter. You are basically in the asshole of a fucking volcano. You are just driving, and it's just you going one way, and then there will be a car coming the fucking other way. And unless you've got some weird skill set, you won't know how far away the thing is or what speed it's going. And so what I had to do, I would start laughing. Like the third or fourth time it happened, I would break out in laughter because that's a coping mechanism for me. But you either have to pray to Jesus, back your ass up, or like find the divot, and you have to pray that you find the little point in the highway where you can just pull over, or you have to pray that the other person pulls over. This can only happen in Iceland because in America we would fucking kill each other. We would kill each other. It is like it's playing chicken. It's playing chicken. But it's how they get around on that island. No one talks about this. Everyone loves fucking Iceland. I damn near died a few different times. So that was the driving through the assholes of the volcano, where you're just like going, and I would be driving, and you literally, there is no room for you to turn around. And also there is no time, because when the headlights are coming at you, And I have no idea what the fucking rules. So does this guy stop? Do I stop? If I stop, is he going to hit me? Like, where's the next fucking turnaround thing? And it's a very good metaphor for life. For sometimes, not all of life, but sometimes you make decisions and you cannot turn around. You cannot do a 3-point turn. You can't even reverse. I personally, I never reversed because I wasn't sure if I could do it or if I could do it at speed. So I would do the whole thing of praying to Jesus. And when I tell you, I prayed to Jesus, I prayed to Buddha, I've freaking prayed to whoever was in the Quran, I don't know, Allah. Like, I was praying to anyone who was on call at that time to give me the little divot so that I could pull this car around. And sometimes the person coming at me in their headlights, they would not turn around, but they would find the little divot thing. The fucking fuck of fucks. And that's how people drive around in Iceland. But it's a metaphor for that sometimes we make decisions and we can't go back from them. That's scary. Iceland. That was the physical manifestation of doing a decision that you cannot go back from. And you don't know. That obstacle or that thing coming at you, those headlights, you don't know how fast they're going. You have no idea. But you can't turn around because there isn't space to turn around. You can't really back up the car because you're already going. You're committed. You are committed. And the divots are like the faith in God or the universe or yourself, or some kind of combination of all three. The divots on the side of the road are the faith that you can fucking do it. That there will be a break. When you see the headlights coming at you at like 180 miles an hour, that somehow there's going to be a break someplace where you can just pull over, but you can't turn back. And some decisions that you do in life, you cannot turn back from. And that shit is hard and it's terrifying. And some obstacles don't just stand in your way. They come at you at 180 miles an hour down the asshole sphincter of a volcano. And you got to decide, what are you going to do? Stop the car, pray that it doesn't hit you, keep on driving, and have faith that a divot, and I'm sure I'm not even using the right word for the fucking things on the side of the fucking sphincter thing that you can pull your car side to, but pray in faith, prayer and faith. Prayer and faith. Iceland taught me a lot about prayer and faith. I'm not going to go too much farther into Iceland because there were too many crazy other things. I did pick up 2 hitchhikers. One was, one had a ukulele and very long hair and dreads. And the other one, they were on the side of the road. I was really lonely. I felt loneliness in Iceland. I normally do not feel that anywhere when I go by myself. That's a not ironic, weird thing. But in Iceland, I felt loneliness. I felt like death around me. I felt like there wasn't anything living. There wasn't anything green. And I felt like I was at war with myself because I was at war with myself in Iceland. And I remember driving and I had it. I forgot what city it was. And I remember driving and it was raining or snowing a little bit. And there were these 2 hitchhikers and one was very good looking and the other one had long dreads and a ukulele. And they both had plastic bags. One had a backpack and one had a plastic bag full of clothes. And they looked harmless, right? And I drove past them and I'd never picked up a hitchhiker since then. They were both in their 20s. They were young, 20s or 30s. And I turned the car around and I picked up these 2 hitchhikers. Never really told anyone about it. I did tell 2 friends and they were like, okay, that's enough now. Like, whatever this war is with you. Is there shame in that story? Yeah, well, there's a how the fuck? I mean, I was dancing closely with the devil on that island called Iceland. So I picked up, they seemed harmless. I picked them up. The guy with the ukulele started playing the ukulele and singing a happy little song. And I didn't do any hostels or anything like that, but they struck me as people who were like, travelers, not necessarily gypsies. They were both, one was American and one was from Australia or something like that. And one was developing some kind of water, some kind of bottled water, something similar to Voss. Now, a logical person would say, Dawn, if he was an entrepreneur who had a real business, why was he running around with his clothes in a backpack, hitchhiking through Iceland? Sometimes, which is a fucking very good question. So one of them, the guy who did not have the ukulele, the good-looking guy, he was classic sociopath. I'm not going to talk about sociopaths today, but I've run into two of them in my life, and I've read 3 books on what a sociopath is, and it's pretty real stuff. Pretty real stuff. So I picked up 2 hitchhikers, and one had a ukulele, and the other one was a sociopath, a good-looking one, and that is where I'm going to leave you for today. For more stories on travel and adventure and honesty, stay tuned. There's more coming. Love you. Bye. Thank you so much for listening today. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. If you did, please forward it to friends, and I would be so grateful for a review on Spotify and Apple. Also, make sure you follow me on LinkedIn under Dawn Marie and my website, www.dawnmarie.co. Please note there is no E in Marie. No excuses. Check out the freebies tab on my website for guides on negotiating income and gaining clarity in your role. You can also follow me on YouTube at I Am Dawn Marie. For the ladies, if you're a female executive in finance or law, you can subscribe to my newsletter, Prime, which is all about taking bold action as a woman. I'll put links for these in my show notes. Until next time, I love you. Get your nose down, take a deep breath, and jump. Keep doing the things that you fear.